Hey guys, good evening. Thanks for sticking around. Appreciate it. Hopefully, we didn't lose too many people this evening, but good to see you. Thanks for stopping by, and thanks for getting my message. So hopefully, we'll get a few folks to log in just a couple seconds. But just out of curiosity, has anyone made any just suggest sayings or made note that they were going to be coming back closer to the 8 o'clock hour by any chance? I'm not sure if that was the case or not, but if you did, that would be great. If not, we'll just continue on as we normally would, but you can go ahead and type it in the chat there and kind of get you going, so that would be great. So yeah, sorry for the delay. Basically, yeah, unfortunately yesterday my mother-in-law, she had passed away due to some like long-term complications. If anyone remembers from, like, I don't know if I mentioned it last semester, but she was having some issues. So that's, she basically had some health issues, and basically she had passed like at pretty suddenly at like 2 in the afternoon. So we've been kind of going through that process right now, and basically my wife is needed in a lot of different areas and stuff like that. So no, thanks Ash, appreciate it. So yeah, so it's very sad and it's very unfortunate, but that's kind of the situation that went down. But yeah, if you just logged on, yeah, basically yesterday my mother-in-law had passed away. She had a multiple systems atrophy, which is kind of known as like MSA. It's not multiple sclerosis per se, but it's a rare genetic, it's a rare neuro sort of genetic disorder. And yeah, basically it's a very limited few people get it. She had it, and basically had like a steady decline in her health these last like 6 years. So yeah, so thank you Chris, appreciate it. Thanks Just. So yeah, so so my wife is obviously devastated, and she is she has a twin sister, of course, and she's the youngest, but she went peacefully, and it went, and yeah, it was it's kind of crazy because we saw her on Easter, and then on Easter I was kind of like, I think my wife saw her on Saturday and visited, and she's like, oh, she's not doing too good, and then her levels went up and things like that. And then I think on Sunday we tried to go to her house for Easter, and then she didn't look too well either, and so that's basically what it ended up being the case. So yeah, hello. So yeah, so she had passed, and now we're going through the motions. Really cool lady, but yeah, so that we're going through that right now. But that's kind of the situation. So we started a little bit later this evening, but basically because of everything that's happened, I didn't want to cancel class today, only because Thursday we were gonna go asynchronous. And basically asynchronous means it's like Thursday is going to be sort of like a work day. I won't be live on Thursday, but I didn't want to miss tonight also. So the compromise was to kind of start a little bit later to kind of make up for the time. So let me just start off with just a couple of quick announcements, and then we'll jump into it, because I want to go over the schedule and everything of that sort, and things of that. Okay. So first things first, welcome back. I hope you guys had a really good spring break. So hopefully you guys got a chance to like rest up a little bit, get to practice on your files as well. So hopefully you had a good break, and went by kind of fast. I'm on my Easter break for my high school job, so we're on break this week, and so we're doing that, and then but Rio is back in. But I wanted to take Thursday time off just to kind of spend time with the family. But now obviously that's going to be more related to the passing of my mother-in-law, so we're going to be doing more things related to that. And so Thursday is basically going to be an asynchronous day. And let me just go ahead and pop that up. I'll send an announcement first thing tomorrow. But basically what's going to happen is that I'm going to go through a couple of things this evening to kind of set you guys up for Thursday. So April the 8th, Thursday session, we're going to go asynchronous. So You know, I'm going to try to do a couple of pre-recordings, reference to the pre-recordings, and you guys can totally work independently at home, or you can come up online and kind of support one another on Thursday. But I will not be live on Thursday. Okay. Basically, I'll have like a pre-recording set up in advance. A couple of them have already gone up actually from previous, but I'll do another recording for tomorrow in preparation for Thursday, just in case there's any questions or issues and things of that sort. Okay, so that's kind of like what's going on for Thursday. So it will be async on that day. Okay, the following Tuesday we'll be back live, and then we'll be moving forward and finishing off the second half of the semester because we're already halfway through. So congratulations, guys. You've already hit the halfway mark. So it's going to get better from here. So that's going to be really, really great. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the schedule, and then I'll share another quick update. But if we were looking at both classes right now, and let me just kind of move this out of the way for here. And according to our project timeline for digital illustration and packaging, I'll pull that up as well. We're definitely transitioning into t-shirt production. So the yellow here in the center is basically S break, spring break. And I would say we're about a little bit behind, almost like a week from the t-shirt graphics. But today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the t-shirt graphic project, and then pre-recording some further details for Thursday to kind of support you as well. So that's we'll be definitely transitioning into that for this week, slash also kind of finishing up the mask layout for vector illustration. So we're kind of finishing basic vector illustrator basics, and then kind of starting with t-shirt graphics and the basics of t-shirt graphics. So we'll be doing that this evening. In fact, I'm thinking that I'll probably start talking about the advanced pen tool exercise tonight, and give you guys a little bit of a breakdown of that project so that we have at least a video recording of it. Then after I go over that, then we'll switch over into the basic facial expression exercise and kind of answer any pending questions that you might have for that. Okay, so that's where we're at with that. For packaging, guys, we are in the also within range of our creative discovery. So right here, where it's the number 5, phase 2 creative discovery, rough graphics. This week, we're basically moving into sort of developing the raw artwork for your creative direction. So your concept directions that you created before we went on break. Now we're going to take some probably like the best ones, the favorites, or for some of you might be even almost all, 3 or 4 of them, and start developing sort of like these Frankensteins, as they're called, or just basically these rough compositions of the graphics to see how the limitations are, and if they're working within the goals, and if there's any limitations or opportunities based off that artwork. So we're going to be kind of creating some rough graphics and some typographic explorations, or pulling up some typographic explorations of your packaging project. And we're technically on schedule, as it were, give or take a week. Okay, so this week was kind of an important week. I didn't want to miss out or completely go or completely black out. So I wanted to make sure we got at least we still kept the ball moving and moving forward from there. So we have that happening as well. Okay. So let's do this for packaging design. Guys, I did put up a really cool video. Well, it's basically the video that we saw over spring break. So if you haven't got a chance to watch it, please go ahead and take a chance to do that. So for packaging design, if you make your way to the discussion portion, illustration styles 5 steps, that was the video that I attached last week when I made the announcement for spring break. If you haven't had a chance to, go ahead and take a look at that video and check out the illustration styles in 5 steps process, and then make some comments, and then we're going to be going from there. And I'm glad it was really helpful there, Ashley. Really appreciate it. That being said, I do have some good news, and this is actually for the whole class, but this actually is for the it pertains to packaging, but it's actually for everybody, which is going to be great. So let me go ahead and switch over on that. But I sent a few emails out, and it turns out that Aaron Atchison from Farm Design is going to join us. So hopefully next, not this Thursday, but next Thursday. At least that's the date that I'm shooting out to them. For those that don't know, Aaron Atchison, Farm Design, they're a very well-known packaging design studio here in Pasadena, and basically they've done some really great work in the area of packaging design. Aaron is a classically trained graphic designer. He did sports design and for many years, and then he kind of went through like this rough patch in his life, kind of reevaluated himself and started over again, and created a new agency. He's got a couple of really good TED Talks about that process of like, doing work that's meaningful versus doing work that brings in money. They're both good, but he wanted to do meaningful work, and he's really great stuff. And he's been featured on Adobe Live, the Future site, and they even have their own a YouTube channel called Do Good Work. And they've been recognized through many magazines, as you can see in the list here: Oprah, How Design, Packaging Digest, Food and Wine, Eater LA, Refinery 29, New York Times, Forbes, Bon Appetit, BuzzFeed. His work has been seen all over the world. And I basically knew him when he was a sports high energy designer, living the life, as it were. And he made a complete shift almost like 10 years ago to do something a bit more meaningful. So I'm really happy that he said yes. Totally was like, cool, let me know the dates, I'll jump in, we'll make this happen. I love to talk to students. And so yeah, he's gonna come in, and I cannot be more excited for that. So if that sounds good to you guys, open it up, give me a little thumbs up, because he's a really great player, a major player in this. And yeah, really excited for it, for the work that he's going in and bringing in. Like he's definitely the guy that puts in very high priced jobs. To have a studio in Pasadena kind of says a lot. So he was kind enough to jump in and talk to us. So that's going to be really great. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So that's going to be happening. But shifting gears a little bit, today we're going to open up the breakout room. So packaging design designers, let me go ahead and set up the breakout rooms right now. And then digital illustrators, we're going to be talking a little bit about the advanced level pencil exercise part 2 first. And then we're going to switch over and take a look and hopefully answer any questions about your facial expressions, which is really more like the one on the left or on the one on the right, depending if you guys had some time to work on it. So that's how we're going to do it. And that's going to be our game plan. Okay. So let me go ahead and open up the breakout rooms, and give me about 30 seconds there. And then I'll meet up with everybody in just a few minutes, and then we'll try to answer as many questions as I possibly can. Okay. So let's go ahead and set that up. And packaging designers. Yes. And then Salamina, open up all rooms. Okay. All right. So then packaging design, we'll set you up. And let me see here, Amy. I don't know if I see you here, but if you are here, I will push you over there. I don't see you. So if we do pop up, we'll see you. I'll move you forward there in just a couple of minutes. Okay. All right. Very cool. While that's happening, guys, just a couple of quick things on the digital illustrator side. Let me go ahead and move a couple of things here so that we can get a visual for it. Okay. And I'm going to kind of set it up here. We'll talk about the abstract facial expression, but in just a couple of minutes. But just out of curiosity, how many of you guys got a little bit of time or to work on it, it wasn't expected. I was just curious to know, did anyone get a chance to kind of work on it during spring break? Again, no pressure. If you didn't, that's totally cool. I'm just kind of gauging to see if anyone had some time. A couple people probably here and there, right? Okay. If you didn't get a chance to, do not worry. That's I actually prefer you guys to take a break, especially with everything that's going on. So if you got in some time, great. I'm just kind of making sure to see where we might be if we have to kind of like pump the brakes here or add more fuel to the fire there. So if you did, great, awesome. If not, no worries. We'll kind of cover that in just a couple of seconds. Okay. Well, let's talk about the t-shirt, the next project we're going to work on, which is the t-shirt exercise. And then we'll come back to the current exercise first, because I want to make sure I have at least some recording available for Thursday on that so we can refer to it. Um, so after we do this exercise that's on screen, guys, this is the purpose of this exercise is to kind of get familiar with moving elements and on your screen, right? How to scale up, how to scale down, how to do rotations, right? And we'll have plenty of time on today/Thursday to work on that, right? But it's really there to kind of give you some time to really move elements, scale, reflect, know where those options are in Adobe Illustrator, and really kind of get this kind of like cut paper feeling of moving around your elements on the artboard, right? Because Adobe Illustrator is very much like I kind of liken it to like a tabletop and cutting pieces out of shapes and drawings that you can move around with the selection tool, which is that black arrow key. So it feels a lot like that, right? In my opinion. And so just getting familiar with how to move elements, scale up according to this tool, which is selection, direct selection, scaling, whatnot. I give at least a good couple of days or a couple of sessions to work on that just to get a feel for it, right? So that's that part. When we move on from here, then we kind of switch gears and we move on to advanced level pen tool. Because when the pandemic started last year, we were in class and then we had to go online. So I made this last minute pivot to do the t-shirt exercise, when in reality, I actually did the movie poster first, followed by the t-shirt. Turned out that pivot from the basics to advanced pen tool ended up creating better work in the long run, even during COVID. So the pivot actually proved that, wow, if this curriculum path is showing better results and better quality work, I'm going to stick to that. So so ever since then, that's actually probably one of the few positive things that came out of this pandemic was students actually had a better experience in understanding this program by just flipping the projects. It deepened the level of the work. So that's kind of the reason why we're moving into advanced pen tool. So the advanced pen tool exercise, which we'll be working on most likely at mid to end of Thursday, you guys will be working independently, of course, is that you're going to draw the Mickey graphic on the center. Okay, and I'm going to run you through that process of what is like. Okay, so I'm going to show you how pretty much at the Walt Disney Company, the artist went from sketches to technically creating production ready artwork that was then distributed to the company through all the designers across all the departments of product. And so if I had to I don't have a visual for it, but if I had to kind of explain it to you, it would basically, you have artists that are traditionally hand drawn, like these awesome hand drawing artists. They draw a bunch of characters according to Mickey. They went through the Disney University or the Disney Illustrator pathway, which I don't know if it still exists, but apparently there is like a group of just sole illustrators, hand drawing artists that whenever any department is requesting artwork, this group would specifically draw these characters similar to any genre, and they had specific training on how to do each era of a character. So if we were talking about Mickey, they know how to draw Mickey from every era across the almost 100 years of this character's existence. And this team knows how to draw these characters. They would be trained by the still alive animators that created these characters, and a few of them are still alive. and they're well in their 60s, I would say. And these people would come in and basically train all the artists on how to draw these characters. And then this team would specifically, their whole job is to basically draw any pose of any character that you want. And then the sort of like the style guide team, what they would do is that they would take these drawings and trace it to create vector ready artwork. And so I'm going to show you what not the top level illustrators do, but rather what the style guide team would do to create these books from those illustrations. Does that make sense? So I'm going to run you through how they created production ready artwork for the style guides, which were then distributed to all the designers across all the departments. And when I discovered that, I thought, that's a pretty efficient way of doing things, because that's how they set it up at the company. So I'm going to show you how to do production ready artwork. And but we're not going to stop there. Once we create production ready art, we're going to create a t-shirt, and we're going to create a Disney themed t-shirt of your choice. You pick your own, you get to pick your own genre, as it were. And I don't have a slide here, it's in the next presentation there, but it's you get to select your own genre and create a t-shirt, and we're going to go through those principles of t-shirt design as well. Okay, so we have a lot going on this evening, but it should be pretty cool and pretty fun overall. Okay, and if you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat, and I'd be more than happy to assist you there. Okay, so let's talk about that t-shirt project first and foremost, and this is really more for like Thursday. But again, I just want to get some camera ready art, pre-recorded video so that we can get the ball rolling for you. Okay, so we are going to go to Chrome, and I'm going to switch over to optimize video and share. Okay, so let me go ahead and move these templates out of the way so that they don't interrupt. So basically, under week 9 and week 10 of our GDSM 164 Canvas class, I have a spring break week 8, and then week 9 and 10 here at the bottom says t-shirt graphics and production ready files. The discussion I'll just briefly mention is actually a really cool video on the Bobby Hundreds brand. If you don't know Bobby Hundreds, it's a sort of like a streetwear urban clothing label that's highly respected. It's been around for many years, and this is about a 20-minute video that talks a little bit about the journey of this designer of the Hundreds, going from creating a t-shirt line to getting into into some popular stores out in LA called Kitson, and how they basically developed their brand into sort of like this fashion empire. And so it's a really down-to-earth sort of interview. It's really bare bones, but I really like it because it has a lot of insight in terms of like how to turn this vision into reality when it comes to developing your own label. And since there's a few of us that are kind of interested in fashion and want to move into that area, this unit would definitely be something related to you guys, because it kind of briefly talks about like that process, what it's like to create your own label, and quite frankly, the level of effort and focus needed to be, quote, successful, right? I have my mentor, who trained me in all things like urban art and urban vector illustrations related to urban arts, has his own label, and he's done some really significant things for Hot Topic and Urban Outfitters and all these other brands, but yet not everyone knows the name, right? So at the end of the day, success to my mentor is just people is making an impact, getting product out there, and just being recognized for the work and doing meaningful work and meaningful designs, right? So and at the end of the day, if he sells 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, which he's hit in different areas and different brands, at the end of the day, he wants his own successful label that can sustain him, and he's still working to that to this very day, and it's almost been like 20 years, right? So I guess the short question I would ask our aspiring fashion designers in class is, are you willing to go the extra mile, do what it takes, and be patient with your label if it doesn't happen in 1, 2, 3, and dare I say, within 5 or even 10 years. Like, are you willing to go the extra mile, go the distance, and make an effort? And so you got to define your success, and I think this is a really good video for all designers, but I think it's going to inspire a lot of aspiring fashion and t-shirt designers that want to have their own label and see what it was like to set it up. And that's really cool, Ellie. It's still popular in some regards, and it's interesting how that this label is considered like the veteran and really awesome, and then he thinks of himself as like, well, no, I consider the veterans like these artists from the 80s and the 90s. So he's highly respected even to this day, and he's still developing product. So definitely worth watching, and I just want to just kind of throw that out there for those guys that are doing their labels and things of that sort. Did I do t-shirts? I did do t-shirts for a while. I did have a small line. It was great. It was fun. And at the end of the day, I felt like as exciting as it was to have t-shirts out there and get it into the stores, for me, I really felt like teaching was a little bit more my call, and then helping people through the process of developing their lines, I think was more my thing. So helping people get to where they need to go in their brands, I think I found more fulfillment in doing that. So even though it was good, it felt good to have a brand and t-shirt, it wasn't as exciting as somebody else that's really, really pumped up to have their work out there. So I do have a soft spot for brands and for people and entrepreneurs that want to do their own brand. And so I just wanted to show you that. And so I support you guys. Okay. All right. Okay. So definitely check it out, and won't be due till really next week, this discussion post, but it's definitely worth a watch for 20 minutes of time. Okay, t-shirt design. Let's talk about the assignment. It's a fun one, and it actually talks about principles of design with relation to t-shirts. And one of the goals in the class is to show students how to develop t-shirts, but more specifically how to get production ready artwork. So I call this activity the Disney themed vintage shirt design project. I gotta learn how to shorten my designs. But the objective for this is to design a vector-based t-shirt graphic in a 1 to 3 colorway option. Okay. I actually do give you last semester's recordings. So it occurred to me, like, if I have recordings from last semester, then then I'm going to use that. So feel free to take a look at those sessions, and if they do help you, go for it. I'll include this week as well, but I'm just going to add further videos there to kind of see if there's any opportunities that you might find in that process. So I'm going to take a closer look at them, but they're there. I just have them in there just in case you want to refer to it. Okay. When it comes to t-shirt designs, I do give you the presentation. So it's a PowerPoint deck here. And so I do have that. And I'm going to actually pull that up. So then that way we have something to kind of pull from and work with. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about those t-shirt designs in the project, so that we can kind of go over any questions or details that you guys might have. Overall. So let's go ahead and pull that up. Actually, okay, we'll just refer to this presentation just for the sake of time here. Okay, so essentially the idea is that we're going to kind of design a colored tee, and that could be one color, black and white, or or it could be 2 to 3 colors roughly. But essentially we wanted to include the word Mickey. Now since then I actually have kind of altered it. It doesn't have to include exactly the word vintage Mickey. I'll have to make a modification, but basically we're going to design like a Disney themed shirt, right, using vector graphics. So I kind of opened it up to any era at this point. So we choose the era. You can pick how you want to go through that process. Okay. And I really have kind of like this checklist when it comes to like really good t-shirt designs. Again, you could totally download this, steal it for your own, if you ever want to start your own t-shirt label. But essentially, these are kind of the things that I kind of remember. I have to make some modifications with this actually, but because it's not Marshall, it's basically like logo. But basically, when it comes to a great t-shirt, there's a couple of things that do come into play. Like one, who are you selling to, right? Like who is your audience? Who are you talking to in this particular instance? That kind of goes back into basic marketing skills, like who's the target audience? When we in my Photoshop class, for those of us that are going to be interested in doing for the summertime, I do a bit of a deeper dive in this because when it comes to like marketing and specifics in terms of like how that all works, it is an in-depth process. And even when it comes to packaging design, target audiences is really like a really important thing because we need to know specifically who we're designing for. They're your customer, they're the people who buy your t-shirt design. And so knowing who is buying, and I mean really knowing who they are, age, their how many kids, how much, what kind of work do they do, how do they feel, what are their innermost deepest secrets, what gets them upset, what makes them happy. Like it's almost like this in-depth psychological profile that, believe it or not, there's information out there available to make these like assumptions, right? Whether it's through surveys or pulling data that's on the internet or using research-based science or university research papers that says if people who are into this are most likely have this psychological profile. There's some pretty in-depth knowledge about there in the area of marketing that is almost scary to the level of how people are very predictable. And in the age of of the internet, we're just pouring out our personal information out there so that these algorithms know more about us than we know about ourselves. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But I know in Photoshop, I go deeper into that in terms of like, what exactly do these things look like? In packaging design, we definitely go way deep into this because we need to know who's buying, this food product or this item. We need to know specifically who this audience is. So we kind of brush it over here a little bit lightly, and then we go deeper into the later levels. So that's just a brief mention there. Know who your customer is, know who the target audience is. Black and white is king. Now we don't have to start there, but I will say that anything that has one color is cheaper. You make the most money. So whether it's, one color black ink or pink or blue or whatever, the less colors basically means cheaper overall because you're using less raw material. Okay. So I don't stop you there. I really don't want to limit you guys to just one color. I really want to open it up to as many colors as you want. It's more about design as it is color limitation. So I'm open to focusing on more on the design aspect. So we can go up to 3 colors if necessary. Okay. The other thing that I actually do, and this is where I kind of differ from a lot of other teachers when they teach this, is that I actually put that question out there of, would you wear it? Or as one of the rules of the class, my classes is like, number 1 rule in our class is that the coolest thing on your screen? If you would wear that shirt, that's how you basically know you're done, right? And what I mean, and it can even be flipped to like, if your audience is most likely going to wear that and you like it, that's kind of a win-win, right? I love this. I would wear this. And not only that, I think it would actually align to my audience. And that's a big indicator of how you know you're done with the design. When I first started out, I had working at Loungefly, I had a hard time turning in work because I didn't know if it was, quote, complete or not. And then I had a heart-to-heart with the art director, and he basically said, you know what? Honestly, don't turn anything in until you know that's the coolest thing on your screen. And I'm like, that's an odd sort of, suggestion. He's like, hey man, I never turned anything in. I never put anything out there into the market unless I think it, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the coolest, that this thing is like an 11, 15, or 20. And I'm like, okay, that's a good gauge. And so if you feel great about it, meaning principles of design, focal point, asymmetrical, there's contrasting colors, you're meeting all those principles of design, and on top of that, there is an emotional response to it, that you're feeling something with regard to it. that's how you know you're done, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Then of course we talked a little bit about, is this the brand, right? Is there a brand mark anywhere? That's obviously the Mickey graphic. We're going to make sure that Mickey's on that t-shirt somewhere, right? So that's going to be a big one. We're going to consider costs, right? Trends is a big factor as well. Certain trends do help, but it's not everything either. And of course we want to create substance. Does this concept work? And do these principles of design carry the question? So how can we incorporate this sense of vintage, this sense of time, era, towards a youth product? That's kind of like the overarching question. Like, how can we put like this classic feel to the product and to the design? So that's kind of at the heart of it. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, so that you guys can kind of get a little bit of a sense of it. Okay. So your design will be going on a template. I'll refer you to that template in a minute. This is a vector template. So we're going to get you there in just a couple of seconds. In fact, I'm going to kind of retrieve that. So we're going to set that up. And I also even reference a couple of the companies there that we'll go a little bit into, and I'll mention like Johnny Cupcakes. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of them. But the brief response is that Johnny Cupcakes is we'll take a bit of a closer look in the next recording. But basically, Johnny Cupcakes sells like limited edition t-shirts. It's really a really great marketing and branding plan. But basically, his philosophy is that I will always have ideas for shirts every month for the rest of my life, because I know how to identify trends. And not only that, I will make every t-shirt limited edition so that they never come back to market ever again. And then people are like, are you kidding? Like, are you that confident? Yeah. And he's proven it, like pretty much for the last, I don't know how many, well over a decade. I know that, maybe 20, maybe two. I feel old. Almost every quarter, there's a new design, limited edition, $35 or higher, never re-released ever again, right? And the guy is a multimillionaire with this business model. So the concept of limited edition and never going like ultimate limited edition and high price, exclusivity, and a liked and relatable brand have been the staple of this person's business. And I'm sure a lot of you guys out there probably know a brand or two that kind of follows a similar format, where it's like high price but never again, or limited edition. But I would almost gather that a lot of the big name brands do this to some degree, in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not every 3 months, but maybe every 6 months, or maybe once a year, but they always go high price. And so that's something to kind of consider. Okay. And that's more of a marketing plan for those of us that are doing business, anything on the business end of things. Okay. Obey Clothing, another one. Shepard Fairey, very popular artist, did the Obey posters, Obama poster creator, now in the Smithsonian, has his own clothing line, all vector artwork. A really great source of inspiration because it's all vector, it's all Illustrator, and it shows that it has these really definite principles of design, the core principles of design, actually. Hydro 74, really great designer as well. I also provide these links as well in the Canvas page. All Illustrator, and the guy is an absolute beast when it comes to Illustrator. His work is outstanding and out of this world, and he's super respected in the field. And he does posters, t-shirts, and products, but it's all Adobe Illustrator. So I just wanted to give you guys some sort of like some resources there. But at the end of the day, all these designers have something in common, which is they pull from graphic design history or art history for their concepts. So heraldry and crest, that is very much what you were seeing here in Hydro 74, right? So that era in in history, medieval times, and your crest was like the symbol of the family, right, of your land, of your region. This style was a style that was that's used heavily even today for t-shirt designs, because it has like sort of a connotation with name and brand and high quality, right? So if you compare the two, they look very familiar, right? And so graphic design history is a really, really important source for that. Poster movement, 1850s, right? What happened during that era? Well, if you look at this era, compare it to Johnny Cupcakes, very similar stuff, right? Influenced by that era of the 1850s. Almost nothing is really original under the sun. Only what is really well referenced, if that makes sense, or creatively referenced. Russian constructivism, again, 1920s, right? This was, Russia was having a lot of young youth in that era were having problems with the authority. And so the graphic design and the graphics were an indication of anti-establishment, anti-authority. That's Obey, right? So Obey took a lot of inspiration from the Russian constructivism because it was anti-authority, anti-establishment, which is very similar to what is the brand about today. So you'll see a lot of rhyming happening in a lot of these eras. And for those that are interested in fashion and in business, you've seen this all the time. Something that's new is really just something from 20 or 30 years ago recycled, right? And so that's kind of how it flows from there. And so the t-shirt template is available on Canvas. But at the end of the day, we need to start off with the Mickey graphic and start pulling that graphic together and making it look like a certain era. Okay, and I talk a little bit about the t-shirt principles as well. But I'll briefly go over the t-shirt principles and then we'll jump over to Mickey. Okay. When we draw Mickey, there are some t-shirt design principles that I typically like to mention to students. And, there's a few YouTube videos that describe it in different ways. Here's how I would break it down when it comes to designing a successful t-shirt, which you sell for a high price. One is framing device. Is there something that contains that graphic, quote unquote? That is known as the framing device, okay? Is there a focal point? So kind of going back to principles of design. Is there something that I see on that t-shirt that stands out? That first graphic, that first image, right? Right. In this case, for this project, we're going to see a Mickey, right? We're going to see Mickey stand out in some way, shape, and form. So he's going to dominate at some level, okay? The next step is foreground, middle ground, and background. This sense of dimension of this flat two-dimensional piece of fabric, the sense of like something is the sense of 3D, the sense of space, the sense of something standing in front, something in the middle, and something behind it. This sense of 3D is really what makes graphic design or t-shirt design in general very exciting, because something that looks flat looks three-dimensional. And so when you have that creates interest, that's visually interesting. And t-shirts kind of carry that theme, maybe not directly, but in some way we see something in the front, in the middle, and in the back, right? And sometimes it's just the front and the back, and that's okay too. But the more depth and the more layers, the better I tend to find. Negative space. Is there room to create? Is there a sense of space happening within it, right? Are we controlling the space? Is there empty space? Not everything has to be filled, quote unquote. But are we conscious of the empty space as much as the filled in space, as it were, or as we call it, negative? And then again, going back to the asymmetrical balance, some t-shirts are typically symmetrical. I tend to like to veer towards asymmetrical if possible, but every t-shirt is a little different. You'll probably find that asymmetry or things that are off the center will probably happen in the background and maybe Mickey in the foreground. So most of the time you'll see Mickey somewhere enlarged in the center, but half the time if you look at the backgrounds, they're pretty much designed asymmetrically, if that makes sense. So we're gonna kind of get that feel and that flow overall in the design, okay? And then the last thing is rule of odds. Any odd number of something typically stands out. And this is sort of a trick towards getting towards asymmetrical balance. a lot of times students can subconsciously put like 2 things here, 2 things here on the left, 2 things here on the right of the canvas, and it looks balanced. And that's true. Symmetrically it is. But when you're going asymmetrical, the rule of odds is helpful. So having 3 of something, 5 of something, 7 of an element, or 9, if you keep an odd number, it kind of forces you into the asymmetrical territory, which makes the t-shirt interesting, right? So these are the rules, right? But ultimately it translates to something like you see here, right? We have a framing device happening. So if I look at the image on the left, that crest is creating a frame. It's kind of a circular frame, right? I have a focal point, which is the boat happening there. Obviously, we have a little bit of asymmetry. The boat's not exactly in the center. The text is not exactly centered. They're sort of off center, as it were, happening within that graphic. The framing device is in the front. We have the boat in the middle, and we have a background, which is sort of the sky or happening there. So there is a sense of, something in the front, something in the middle, something in the back, or foreground, middle ground, background. And even in the image on the right, you see the same thing, right? The palm trees and the moon and the hammock are creating that sense of a frame. So we see this framing device happening there. And that's there. Focal point, you could say it could be the palm trees or the person and the hammock or the text, right? But whatever it is, we see something there as a focus, which is happening. The left is not equal to the right. One palm tree is literally larger than the one on the right. And it's also technically sort of in the foreground. So it's kind of like in front, and while the palm tree is in the back. And of course, palm trees is in front of the moon, but the moon is technically like a background. So we have like this sort of foreground, middle ground, background effect happening, right? So any shirt, if you run it through this list of like the principles of successful t-shirt design, I like to say, you will find that kind of playing a role more times than not. Okay, and that's helpful, and that's encouraging, because then it's not this sort of mystical like science, like this secret thing. It's very intentional, and you can break down and make a really cool t-shirt. Okay, so if that's making sense, maybe I can get a quick thumbs up, and just to kind of make sure it's kind of bringing a little bit of understanding to you. And if it does, great. Maybe you've never heard it this way before. Let me take a moment to actually plug in my power. Okay, with everything going on, I make sure that everything's plugged in. All right, that's fun. So yeah, so hopefully for my fashion designers out there, and if you guys are in fashion design, hopefully this helps you too. I don't know how many, I know there's a couple of us that were considering fashion. I definitely didn't want to leave you guys out. Sometimes graphic design classes do not consider fashion, but when you go to a fashion school, they put you in graphic design. Hello. So it's like, can we like maybe include the fashion designers? And quite frankly, my first job was in fashion. It was fashion accessories, and then it turned into accessories, right? Or excuse me, into actual t-shirts, and then t-shirts turned into handbags, and then totes, and then all of a sudden we're like designing clothes and designing patterns for like long sleeves and short sleeves, and even it's really interesting how it kind of expanded into like the fashion territory, starting from accessories, but the rules are somewhat similar, right? So hopefully this helps you, and that kind of gives my future focus or fashion focused designers something to kind of look forward to. So a little bit of a business plan helps, knowing your target market, and ultimately having those core principles happening is very, very helpful too. I will say this with regards to fashion is that, once upon a time, fashion was every 6 months, a new line would come out every 6 months, and that was it. And then at one point it was like every 3 months, and I forget the name of the brands. Maybe it's H&M, but now it's almost like every week is like a new product or a new brand. So fashion is now turned into so hyper focused that it's almost like a new line or something along those ends, or almost on a weekly basis. So that's 57 weeks out of a year and 57 lines. I mean, it's pretty intense. and it's very possible. I mean, when I was doing sort of fashion related stuff, the furniture stuff I was doing was fashion focused, and I was pulling out products almost like every month, practically designing a new line almost every week. And so it is possible. It's not easy because you have to be really in tune to trends and know what's coming down the pipe, coming down the pipeline for fashion related items. But it's intensely hyper focused, and it is very possible. And yeah, a lot of these companies are thriving off weekly product lines. So I think it only makes sense to kind of provide you guys with some insight in that area for those of us that are going to enter into fashion. And just out of curiosity, how many of you guys are going to be focusing on fashion at some level, or would like to within your career? If you give me a little thumbs up emoji, I'm very curious to know how many of us would want to get into that area. Okay, so we have a few of us. So yeah, so definitely keep that in perspective, guys. And definitely check out the video. It does have some good insights as well for the discussions. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the links. So here on Canvas, the post that I have here, which about the cool brands basically. So Obey Clothing, Johnny Cupcakes, Threadless, what I just talked about in that lecture. They're all here at the bottom, and so you could totally click onto that and take a closer look at some of the designs and get a little bit of a feel for it. I've included another brand called Threadless, which is it's kind of like t-shirt contest where people submit their designs, and the more popular one gets made, and you get a percentage of the sales. So they're very hyper fashion focused, like almost every week it sounds like. So that's another really good inspiration there. I also provide it's 2020, I'll update for 2021, but t-shirt design trends and how to spot the next big thing before everyone else does. This is a really cool, good article on just how to detect patterns graphically within this field and how to bring it to the forefront. Sometimes there are websites that are doing that for you through a simple Google search. You could say, t-shirt trends 2021. But to understand that process is helpful too. Like how do they detect it? And for me, I think it's a lot of scanning, looking at articles, looking at magazines, looking at t-shirt companies and Urban Outfitters and a lot of these progressive t-shirt labels, and see where they're going, and even looking at high fashion and seeing where the high fashion labels are going in terms of theme are signals towards what could be popular. And at Disney, that was exactly what we did. We looked towards high fashion to detect what the trends were. We would hire people to give us trend reports, and then we would take those trend reports and then put Mickey and Goofy and all these characters within those. So if you want to know how Disney stays relevant, it's all within trends. They look at global trends, they look at regional trends, they look at national trends. And every consumer product, Disney, whatever, will always basically look at region and global, and teams will customize lines according to the store, according to the country, according to the season. That's how focused we would be in those times. And that's how you made, well, when I was there, that one consumer products would make about globally 32 somewhere like 32 billion. Was it 32 million North America or 32? I think globally was in the billions, and then North America was like in 32 million plus, something like that. It was like this ridiculous number, and just consumer products alone. And that wasn't even including movies. That wasn't including park sales. It was just selling products nationally. It was in the tens of millions, and I think globally was in the billion mark. So if we were looking at trends, and that's how companies stay relevant for over almost 100 years, we'll probably want to think about doing the same in our labels in the future too. So just throwing it out there. Okay. I also have some fonts available. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And we also have some access to free vector elements and graphics for this project. But I want to direct your attention towards this one, which is the advanced pen tool exercise. And what I'm going to do is make that really big so that we can focus on that for this week. since we have a little bit of time, limited time. But the first thing we're going to do is basically use that is to go with advanced pen tool exercise. And the advanced pen tool exercise is going to be this one. I'm going to make this color red. Well, I hope it'll allow me to do that. And I'll label it as red so that you can kind of start here. Okay. And the advanced pen tool exercise, when you click onto it, is the Google Drive file. It's an Adobe Illustrator file, and it basically contains a level 1, 2, and 3 design. Okay, you do not have to download it right now. Just wanted to kind of refer you to it. But basically, what's going to happen is that when you download this file and open it in Adobe Illustrator, the way it's going to work, and I'm going to switch over to Adobe Illustrator so you can see it, is that we're going to take that pen tool and we're going to do a way deeper dive on tracing. So after we create our faces exercise, essentially what's going to happen is that we're going to come back to that pen tool, and we are going to draw a level 2 Mickey here. Okay. And so these are basically JPEG. So these are basically JPEG files. Let me show you the original before I set that up. So they are pixelated around the edges. Okay, that's intentional. And what's going to happen is that we're going to take this Mickey graphic and we're going to trace it according to basically what production ready art would look like. And a lot of people would say, well, okay, well, Professor, what does that really mean? What does that even look like? Well, I'm going to run you through it. Basically, if I were to show you in outline mode what this artwork would look like, these are all vector files or vector artwork here. And in fact, let me move it off to the side so you can kind of see it a little bit more so that the JPEG outlines don't throw you off. So if we were going to look at this graphic right here, okay, this is basically all this is vector art, and there's a lot of points happening here, right? There's a lot of anchor points happening, and it's basically like complicated shapes. It's just a lot of complicated shapes, and we're going to treat all those complicated lines and shapes basically just like we did for your hand, and just like we did for the complicated shapes exercise. We just have a lot of them. Okay. And it works kind of in layers. So when I take a look at this file, I'm going to ungroup it, and I kind of split it up. Every element you see here is a closed vector object. Okay. So everything here has been traced. Okay. The gloves, that part of the finger, all this are just a lot of closed vector complicated shapes taken to the major next level. Okay. Is this going to take time? Oh, yes. Okay. So everything here, even Mickey's face, okay, even the white in his eyes and the highlight on his nose, right? And the red in his tongue, all these are closed vector shapes, okay? And the first thing that you guys are gonna draw is the black base, or the outline of the character. And students always go, what are you talking about? The way you trace any vector ready art or production ready art is that you have to make decisions on what is a closed vector shape. So there is nothing in this exercise that is, quote, a open line or open shape. The goal is to make closed vector objects out of everything, okay? And the trick is to know where to go, where to create a closed vector object. So if I had to show you how we would go about doing this, or if I had to give you the short answer, you're basically going to be drawing, and let me just kind of open up the layer here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So you're going to be drawing 22 closed vector objects, and they will all become Mickey. Okay. And this is considered mid-level because if you look at Popeye compared to Mickey has shadows, whereas Mickey doesn't have shadows. So where the orange is, like that would be another level in and of itself. And that's why I call that a level 3. That would be the ultimate high level, but we're not doing Popeye. We want to do Mickey. And Mickey, I think, is a good challenge, and it's probably better than what intro-level graphic designers would do anyway. So how do I do this? How do I put it together, Professor? Like, you're already freaking me out. Okay, let's jump into it. And again, only observe, and then we'll kind of do a deeper dive on Thursday when you have some time to do it. And don't worry too. All this stuff is adjustable or can be modified. So if you make a mistake, this is all editable, and they can be cleaned up and fixed. So don't feel like you have to get it right the first time. There are ways to adjust the graphics, and that's part of the process too of making production ready artwork. So if you guys remember from the complicated shapes exercise, what do? We just basically start somewhere. I typically like to start from the top, and I basically just kind of start from the top and treat everything like a complicated shape. So I treat every curve like it's a complicated shape. I treat the little curves like they're really big ones, basic big ones, except there's a lot of them, right? And so in this instance, and yes, for those people that are saying, do you want us to like complete the ear? The answer is yes, you do complete the ear. We'll just start with the second ear just to not make it confusing. I literally just go to my pen tool, right? Go to my pen tool. I go to my fill here on the left. So if I direct my attention towards fill, and I'm going to switch the fill from a black to a fill of none, at least to start off. So I'm going to switch this around, give it a fill of none. And then for the outline, obviously for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to give it an outline of red. You can make it red if you wish, or any color. I just like to do red just for the sake of the demonstration. And I'll increase the brush stroke, which I am going over here to increase, although you can also click up here at the top of the menu bar to change the stroke, specifically on the red arrow key there, or the the arrowhead pointing up. And then now that I have all that, I should be ready to begin my tracing. And literally what I'll do is I will just drop a point, and I would say, okay, Mickey's ear kind of finishes here. Click, pull, click, hold the click, pull down, and then remember the handles. Remember those lovely handles we had talked about last time? Release, go back, kill the handle. Okay. You're going to go back to that point, delete that extra handle, and basically ask yourself, where does this curve finish? About here. Click, pull ever so gently. Release, go back, delete that extra handle, or as I say, kill the handle, and start over. This curve finishes, this is like right here at the end of his thumb. Go back, kill the handle, start over again. And just like that, guys, it's just like those complicated shapes, right? And I treat Mickey with the same level of detail as I would a complicated shape, but that's it. That's all there is to it, right? The trick is knowing what is a quote base or the first layer or the black base versus like the white hands. And so in my head, I just look at any character with a black outline. In my head, I basically say, you know what? That's not a black outline. That's a black base. That is literally a black shape of a Mickey or character cut out in its fullness, and it's sitting at the very bottom of the face and the feet and the shoes cut out. So I kind of think of it as cut paper. You can't really like incomplete a piece of paper, if that makes sense. Like at some point when you cut a piece of paper, you have to finish cutting it and it turns into a shape, right? You just can't start cutting and then stop. It has to be done. It has to be complete. So think of your tracing as like cutting paper. It can't really be done until you close that shape. Okay, if that makes sense, maybe a little thumbs up, just to kind of get that idea across. So as long as you know, like, okay, I gotta just make the decision of like, what is a closed shape, and just start with the very basic. Real basic is just black outline, red outline. Just equate in your head that outline equals solid black or whatever solid closed vector shape at the very bottom, and everything's on top of that base, right? Or on top of that piece of paper that's closed, as I like to think of it. Then this project will be very easy. Okay, so and I'm basically gonna go around, okay, and I'm just gonna close and build those vector objects. So I'm literally gonna go around and kind of put a little bit of speed into it, go back, delete, right? And I'm literally just kind of drawing those shapes there. Now, if you feel like you want to leave an extra handle, just do so cautiously, because that extra handle will always pull your line in a certain direction. But if you're like, no, I don't want to risk it, then just always delete that handle every time. Okay, we have time, right? Just go back and delete that handle and literally make, zooming in, zooming out, holding down the space bar key, right? And going around this character, okay? It's really not rocket science, to be honest. But just knowing the rules and is half the battle. So if you're like, man, like how can I create like really good artwork? This is how you would do it. And again, you might have to zoom out in some instances, go back, kill that handle, and decide where those curves kind of finish. And you may even have to thin out some of those lines too, just so that you don't go crazy figuring out like where it finishes, right? Come to a point here, kill the handle, and then that curve finishes right about here. Have a nice sharp curve point there. The less points typically gives you a smoother curve, but do it cautiously, because sometimes you could go a little bit too far, and sometimes too far might mean going outside the outline. I would say try to stay as close to the edge as possible, because there's pixels there. I think if you cover up most of the darkest black pixels, I think you'll be okay with that regard. And then I'm literally going back and treating everything like basically like a complicated curve. Always asking myself, where does the curve finish? Oh man, that's a small one here. So I'm gonna finish it like about there. That's a really small one. I'm gonna finish about there. This one's a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna try to finish it about here. Go back. Well, that's a nice, good size one. I'll finish it maybe around there, right? So it's gonna take a little bit of practice, a little bit of zooming in and out, holding down the spacebar key, going back, killing that handle, and taking that time, right? Just to get that character going. and basically going around and around and around and around and around and around, so that we can kind of create that character as best as possible. And it's taking me a few minutes and I'm already about halfway there, but it will take time. So when you're going around, just continue to go all the way around in the black until you eventually will come back to Mickey and close that shape, which will lead you to here. Okay, and I know I want to leave some time so I can check in with the packaging design students, but that's literally what's going to be the first part that everyone will be working on. Okay, so that's the first plan. That should take us well into Thursday. When we, if you finish that base, then the next one that will probably be a little bit easier is the pants and the shoes. You could probably move on to the gloves. I actually think maybe the gloves would be the next best thing, is to trace those gloves and make it into a closed vector shape. Just know that the glove is, according to my visual here, is not the whole finger. It's wherever that white path goes that creates the closed vector shape. And it's all illusion, right? Creating that illusion. And then the finger, which is that middle finger of Mickey, kind of is drawn as his own closed vector shape too. Okay. So this will definitely take some time. Okay. Frequently asked questions. Okay. Well, Professor, what happens if I have like a really weird, like, situation where, like, there's like a nick here, right? Well, you just saw it. We can use the white arrow direct selection tool, and technically I can click on, with the direct selection, the white arrow onto a specific point, click, highlight, click, hold the click the second time, and pull. So I can technically pull points around, and that's really helpful. Another frequently asked question is like, all right, Professor, well, what happens if I have like this weird, like, sharp angle happening here, and it's like really, really weird, and it's not smooth? Okay, the short answer is that this program has these curvatures, which are these circles. So if you see where there's the square, the anchor point, there's this circle underneath it that kind of has like a quarter half or half a circle. If I click and pull, it actually rounds and smooths the corner. So click, and there's a lot of them. So if I take that and pull down what is a curve or pointy sort of end or nick, turns into a smooth curve. And that's really helpful. So everything is editable or editable, right? And everything can be fixed to a smooth curve. Okay. Ellie, you said that the white empty space between Mickey's arm. Yes, that one, I would close that one. I would draw that as well, because eventually what we're going to do is we're going to assign that shape to the black space, and we're literally going to use a tool called Pathfinder to delete the area. So it's kind of like a cookie cutter. If this shape is over the black base and I go to my Pathfinder tool, which doesn't even mean finding paths, which is kind of weird. But basically my Pathfinder tool here says click to minus the front. What that means is that that white that's on the front of the black, if I click it, it disappears. That means it was deleted, it cut through, it punched through. Now I have this Mickey with like this closed vector shape and this sort of gap in the middle there. So hopefully that answered your question, but you will draw the white, but later we're gonna assign the white to a hole to punch through it, if that makes sense. So that's Pathfinder. It's not called Pathfinder though, which is really weird. But it is a game changer, that tool. Okay. All right, very cool. Okay, so and this is what I did when I first started out. I asked my art director, hey, I want to draw like you. And he gave me, not a Mickey, he gave me like this Tootsie Roll character, this sort of like very vintagey character from the 1950s. And he said, trace it. And I literally went home after a long day and I started learning this stuff on my own, because I never got it at college, right? Like we did do it, but it was not to this level. So I was like, okay, if I ever teach this, I'm gonna do what my art director did, and so you guys are getting a piece of that experience, okay? And believe me, it is so worth it, because I was like, oh, okay, so I have to really think of this as like cutting out paper, because and here's the justification for that, right? People are always like, well, what do I do like that? It's like, okay, well, here's the reason behind that, okay? And let me just kind of go a little bit backwards, and I'm gonna revert back, okay? And because a lot of students are kind of like, hey, professor, but like seriously, like why do I have to do it like that? Let me see if I can pull up the menu really quick, and I'm gonna revert back. Oh gosh, I hope it opens up. If I revert. Actually, it came from this shirt over here. Okay. Well, we can use this. We can use it like this. Okay. So why am I going to do it like that? Okay. Well, if at some point I ever need to, let's say you know, there's a budget issue and you don't have the money to do 2 or 3 colors, then literally you can come in to this artwork, right? And you can come up to Illustrator and you can say, all right, then I'm going to go to my menu setting, and I'm going to go menu, edit colors, and I'm going to convert this to grayscale. Okay. If I convert this to grayscale and delete all that color stuff, right? Or maybe I'll just take everything and convert it to grayscale. Then I've literally taken all those elements and I can now convert it to, where did it go? Edit colors, convert to grayscale. Now this is turned into a 1 color job. So I went from like, you know, a 2, maybe 3 color job, which costs more money, to a 1 color job, because gray is a shade of black, right? So it's still the same color. You just add white to a dark color, to basically black ink. You add white to black ink. And so I just saved myself a lot of money by going that direction, right? So then at any point, if you ever want to change your artwork and adjust it, or you need to make an adjustment to a specific color, or you want to, or maybe it's Mickey's not printing as bright, or his pants are not coming in at the color that you want it to, then you can select those specific elements and make them within 2 seconds a lighter color or a darker color. Does that make sense? Like if it's a closed vector object, then even though it takes longer to set up, it's gonna save you so much time later if you need to make something lighter, darker, or change the color, or hey, we don't have enough money to paint to do this color, so guess what, we're gonna have to, you know, delete red and maybe switch it to this other color. So it's what this does is it allows you the flexibility to make changes on instantly without costing you more in the production side of things, if that makes sense. And not only that, if you hand off this artwork to a company that prints your shirt, then what happens is that all they got to do is say, hey, I noticed that there's a color issue. Can I change the this to that? And you're like, yeah, absolutely. Just click onto the pants and change it for me, and we're done. It saves you time. It saves you money. And it's kind of like what all production crews and production studios do when they're developing anything, whether it's clothing, shoes, fashion, you name it. Everything has to be closed. Everything has to be a closed vector object in order for those changes and adjustments to be made. And it happens instantly in seconds, right? So it saves you money, saves you cost in the long run, and that's helpful, okay? Hopefully that helps with the understanding of that, okay? Okay, very cool. All right, guys, so then, so that's the breakdown, okay? Basically what's gonna happen after this is we're gonna allow you guys some time to make adjustments to the next exercise, which is not the t-shirt template, but I'm gonna go ahead and open up that file because we were working on the abstract faces. And using these shapes, what we're gonna basically continue doing is designing a face using these shapes, right? And when you're designing this, I was saying that some of the things you could do is do like a edit copy or Command C or Control C for a PC, and do Command V like Victor, and you can make copy and pasting of your file. And here's a very useful tip. If you ever want to flip or reflect your character, you can technically right click or go up to the edit menu transform feature, and you can go transform reflect. Okay. And if you reflect, then you'll get a menu that pops up and says, hey, would you like to reflect this horizontally, which is up, down, vertically, so side to side, right, left, right. And here on the left, you can do a little preview of that. And if you reflect and click OK, now you've basically made a reflection of your character, okay? So that's very helpful. If you want to do a fast version of a copy and a paste, what you can do is that you can select the object. And if you hold down the Alt Option key for your computer, you'll notice that, and I'll zoom in here, is that if I hold down the Alt Option key, it goes from a black arrow to a white arrow. I'm on the selection tool, black arrow, of course. And if I hold down the Alt Option key, I get a white arrow underneath it. And what happens here is that if I see the white arrow, and again, Alt Option, I'm holding Alt Option, not letting go. And then I click on my mouse, not letting go, and pull. I can actually make a copy by holding and pulling. So Alt Option, double arrow, click, hold, pull, release, release Alt Option. I made a copy. If I want to do it faster, I can technically hold down Alt Option and go click, pull, release, 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 release. And in like 10 seconds, I've made all these copies, right? All with an Alt Option, click, pull. So that's helpful. That's actually going to save me time in making copies and arrangements and things of that sort. So that's very helpful too. Okay. And oh, last one too. Hey, Professor, how do I like make the rabbit go behind the heart? Is there a way to do that? Yes. The quick way to do that is that if you right click the mouse, well, if you select the object, whether it's like the heart or the rabbit, let's say it's the rabbit, and you want to put the rabbit behind the heart, click onto the rabbit, right click, and go to arrange, send to the back. Then what send to back does is that it moves that rabbit to the back of the heart. Now you sent it to the back, okay? And then of course the opposite is true. You can select the rabbit and right click, arrange, bring it to the front, and now the rabbit's in the front of the heart. So I always get that question too, right? Like, how do I reflect or excuse me, how do I like put it behind or in front? And the answer is send it back, send to front. Okay. All right, sounds good there. So yeah, so have some fun with it, guys. I know that I kind of laid a lot of information, so I'm gonna put this online tonight, and then we'll refer to this video recording to help you with the Mickey graphic / also for this exercise as well. Okay. Did that help you guys? Does that make complete sense? I know I kind of hit you with a lot of lecture, but this is kind of like me downloading today and Thursday to you, so that there's no confusion, no issues, and no problems there. Is this making sense? Is it kind of like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense, and it just takes time. I just have to like basically put in the time to make every, you know, subtle curve into like, you know, a big curve. So if that makes sense, you give me like a little thumbs up there, and then hopefully that'll kind of help you. Okay, cool. Yeah, it all takes time. It's a simple technique, and but it's a time consumer. That's pretty much what Illustrator is. It's all simple techniques. It's just time consuming. And I haven't even gotten into the artificial intelligence stuff, which is the smart computer stuff. There will come a time where you won't have to even do this at all. And it's starting already. So, but it's good to know because it's just helpful in case you get an older version of a program and it's like, well, we don't have the new version of the software, so we only have an older one. And that has happened to me too. where it's like, wait a minute, don't you have the latest version? It's like, no, we only have the older version because we don't have enough money to buy the newest version. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to do this the old-fashioned Designosaurus way that my teacher taught me in high school, in college. Yep, okay, here you go. And so that's kind of like the way to do it. But I will show you the super advanced way when we get to the movie poster exercise, and you're gonna be like, whoa, that's cool. So that's kind of the format there. Okay. All right. All right, wonderful. So here's what we're gonna do, guys. If there's any like floating questions, you could totally join me in the packaging room. I'm gonna connect over with the packaging designers, but basically, if this is helpful and everything's making sense, then I will dismiss you a little bit early. Again, Thursday is asynchronous, so revert back to this video that I'm about to post up later this evening. You can come online and help one another. If you have a question, feel free. It's open, at all times. You don't have to come online. If you feel like you got it down, you want to come on and work independently, please go ahead and do so. Thursday is going to basically be open lab all day, and my family's going to handle some business, obviously, for things that have happened. And we will connect on Tuesday of next week, 6:30, and we're going to share everything. So we're going to look at your faces exercise. We're going to take a look at hopefully the first part of Mickey. So if you got the black base of Mickey, great. That's a good start. And then we'll check in and see and talk about techniques and adjustments. And hopefully by Thursday of next week, we will have sort of the beginning portion of a t-shirt design already laid out. So, or at least moving in that direction. Okay. And we'll have a t-shirt design for us, and we'll have a portfolio piece. So I'm excited to have that. This is technically our first portfolio piece too. And I'm expecting, my goal is to have to make this project a portfolio piece for everybody across the class, so that you can use it for future internships or job opportunities and showcase a little bit of what you can do. So there's another intent for that too. Okay. All right, very cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining. I'll go ahead and I'll dismiss you guys. Have a good evening. If there's any additional questions or concerns, feel free to stick around here or join me in the packaging room. I'm going to kind of debrief the designers for a minute, see what they're up to, and then I'll make my way back in about hopefully 10 or 15 minutes. Okay. All right. All right. Well, all right. We'll see you then. Appreciate it.